Hello, hello. I'm back with a new series of recaps. I just finished the 2025 Grenke Open, and this was a tournament that I played right after Reykjavik, which I did recaps for on this channel. And this tournament was pretty chaotic. It was 2 rounds per day, so pretty much from the get-go, I decided like I'm not going to do any recaps. I barely have time to like eat and prep for each game and like get some sleep in. So yeah, there was that was definitely a good call. There was definitely not enough time to do recaps during the event, but I'm still pretty fresh coming off of it. I feel like I have a pretty good memory of these games, and yeah, I'm excited to share them with you now. So round one, I was paired down against the player from Germany, Alexander Berkes maybe, and rated 2062. And yeah, so this is a Grenke Open, so a very big tournament. And obviously there was, if you saw the event, then you would know that there was a freestyle section and a regular section. And so the regular Open is always very strong, and this year was no different. There's like tons of very, very strong grandmasters. There's like a B section, C group. So actually a huge event, which was very interesting, held in Karlsruhe. Don't know how to pronounce it well. And the tournament had like 3,000 players, so it was just like this massive, massive event. And then obviously it had this like huge freestyle thing. And when I originally signed up for the event, I actually wanted to play the freestyle. And during the event, I definitely wanted to play the freestyle, and I still want to play the freestyle. But leading up to the tournament, I decided like a couple of weeks ago that I would, I don't really have a lot to play for in the freestyle right now because there's no ratings, there's no norms. My chances of a prize were very small in either tournament because I would just be fighting for the open prizes, but I would say they were definitely smaller in the freestyle than they were in the actual open, just because it was so incredibly stacked. But a very enjoyable tournament, I gotta say, even though I had to play the normal chess. It's still like such a pleasure to be in the same room with like Magnus and obviously all of the other super GMs. But I was lucky enough to be sitting, close enough to the stage area and the top boards where I could like often watch the players just from like where I was sitting, which was super cool. Just being able to see these guys, at work is kind of incredible. So anyways, back to the game, round one starts. And so this tournament is actually a little bit faster time control than Reykjavik, which had two time controls. This one just a pure 90 plus 30 classical. And there wasn't a lot of time to prep for the game, especially round one. The pairings came out like right before the round started, which is pretty typical for like a massive open. And so I basically had like no time to prep, like maybe like 5-10 minutes at most. So I didn't have anything super special going in. So I decided to kind of just play my usual knight c6 repertoire. And here comes bishop b5, Rossolimo. So at this point, I decided to play knight f6. And this is a move I've played here a couple times before. Black, of course, has other options as well. Later on in the tournament, I played d6 here a couple times. But yeah, I decided to go knight f6, which, yeah, I've played before and I think is still very, very solid. So here white goes e5, knight d5, knight c3, and knight c7. And so this is, okay, one of the main lines in this opening. Now white takes on c6, dc, and goes knight e4. And yeah, at this point, I'm already kind of like figuring it out because I don't think I've actually ever played this position, at least not like OTB. And so I wasn't expecting it for like this game either because, we only had like a few minutes to prep. So yeah, I'm already on my own. Basically, what I kind of knew about the position is that the bishop on c8 is often going to f5. Sometimes black plays h6. Very often black plays h6 and tries to bring the bishop back to h7. And then the queen is well placed on d7. And it's a funky structure. It's the Rossolimo. So it's almost like Berlin-esque in a way because black has this kind of weird structure, but we also have the two bishops. And so dynamically, it's quite complicated, I would say, both strategically and dynamically. Like it's like really hard to handle for both sides because the pawn structures are weird and there's a lot of like different plans and ideas. And well, okay, that's all I knew, but my opponent played knight e4 attacking the c5 pawn, so I went b6. Now comes h3, I think logical move. And here I went h6 because I want to play bishop f5, but on knight g3, of course, I just want to bring my my bishop back when it gets attacked by the knight. So I want this square open already. I did check this one with the engine, and it said f5 is a good move here. So, do with that what you will. Actually, for these games, I mostly I try not to look at the computer. But for a lot of the openings, it's kind of unavoidable. And then some of the games actually were just like so tense that I kind of just like had to check at least like what the evaluation was. Also, because like during the game, I remember just for a lot of these games, just like being confused, like what is going on? Like, am I winning? Am I worse? And so I really just needed to like know after the game if the evaluation was correct. And a lot of times I was off, so it was very useful for me to find that out. So yeah, apparently f5 is playable here if white takes on passant, which for many players is forced. E takes f6 would be the response, and black's king will eventually either castle or can maybe even like hang out on f7 for a time. Yeah, black's idea here is to just try to get the bishops out and start messing with white's pieces. So h3, h6, d3, bishop f5, knight g3, drop back, castles, and now I played queen d7. And I think, okay, yeah, this was another moment I checked with the computer, and it said like c4 was good here, which I remember like considering this during the game, but I was always like not really sure, if white plays d4, for example, whether I'm happy with this kind of change in the position. Because, okay, I did improve my light scored bishop, but yeah, I don't know. I also allowed white to kind of strengthen the e-pawn. So I just wasn't sure if this is something that I actually want to allow in the position. So it kind of shows, I'm like not really familiar with this structure. So there's a lot of stuff I just don't understand. So I play queen d7, rook e1. And yeah, at this point, I've already kind of decided in my mind that I want to castle queenside. Because I think the position kind of calls for it. And okay, that's a typical thing in these kinds of positions. And then go like g5 and just start counterattacking on the king side. And I wasn't sure like what order to do this in, but I thought like maybe I should start with g5 because I didn't really see like what white is doing in the meantime. And maybe I can start with g5, maybe even go like bishop g7. And I don't think I was going to castle king side. I think I can just, also just castle queen side and put the king on b7. But for whatever reason, I decided to start with g5 here, which I think is a little, it's a little sketchy to say the least. Because of course, white has this like e6 move available to them. Just a very kind of direct pawn sacrifice where any way I take, the knight is coming to e5 with tempo and starting to really harass black's pieces. So I definitely considered e6 before playing g5. In fact, I think I thought about this for like 4 or 5 minutes because actually I was quite concerned about e6 because it looks very scary. But after knight takes e6, knight comes into e5, I thought I'm dropping back with queen c8. And let's say I take here with the knight, knight e5, I drop back somewhere. Actually, let's say queen c7, and white goes queen f3, attacking both f7 and c6. Then I have this backwards move, knight d8, and I defend both pawns. And it's a little bit awkward, of course. I mean, it doesn't look fun to just put your knight back on d8, but it is like a big center pawn that white has given up. And so if black can develop the bishops and even manage to castle, black will just be doing extremely well. So I didn't really know if this was like something I should be afraid of. And like over the board, I was afraid of it, but I, also allowed it. And so sure enough, my opponent does go e6. And in fact, he only spent like 3-4 minutes here, which I remember. I remember when like he played it rather quickly, I was like, uh-oh. Because normally like a player, if they're like low rated and they sacrifice a pawn, normally they're going to like spend some time on it unless they're like very confident, that it's good. So when this move came quickly, I kind of felt like I had messed up by allowing this. But okay, at this point, it's too late. Now, of course, before g5, what I realized I should have done and was kicking myself for not doing was just like playing knight e6 here. Because there's no reason black can't start with this move. Just the knight goes to e6. It blocks white's push e6, and then I can go g5 from here, and then I can castle. So in fact, this was like by far the most flexible move because, okay, the bishop on f8 looks stupid, but I am going to go g5 and bishop g7 eventually. And yeah, I also want to castle, play king b7, and eventually, of course, the knight can also jump to d4 at some point, and I think black can kind of free their position. So g5, e6, I take, knight e5. And at this point, of course, I tank. I think I spent like 20 minutes here because I wanted to really make sure I get this right. Because black has quite a few options. Like I can move my queen to c7. I can go queen d6. I can play queen d5, which is probably the move I thought about the most because this stops white from playing queen f3. Because this queen f3 is like the most dangerous square for white's queen. It hits f7, it hits c6. There's also queen h5, but I'm less worried about this one because it's only hitting like f7 here. And if I just move my knight, my queen is covering f7. So I felt like I would have a number of options in this position. And I think black does. Now, I'm not sure about knight. Well, maybe knight g7 is okay. Here I can take this pawn and then actually, survive because the rook is hanging, so there's no good discover attack as far as I can see. And then g5 is also hanging and c6 is hanging. So I have two discovered attacks against the queen, but I don't think I actually have like a great move here because white's queen is hitting too much stuff. So I don't think this is actually working. But maybe I can go knight f4 where it feels like, yeah, I'm keeping f7 defended. Although even this, like, I think is actually kind of quite sketchy because white has like c4 to mess with my queen. So actually I would be totally unclear about this and maybe would just prefer knight d8 to defend the f7 pawn with my knight so that my queen isn't tied down to its defense. So the real issue with queen d5, as far as I thought, was that white will just play c4 right away. And so the idea would be to kind of induce this move and then drop back with the queen. Let's say queen d6, queen f3, and here play like knight d8. So in all these positions, I actually have like two moves for black. I can go knight d8, defending both pawns, but at the cost of my development, because my king on e8 is now really poorly placed. Or I can go bishop g8, which is also funky, but additionally, like, it gives the c pawn, which I was kind of happy to give back if I could, because then I thought maybe I can at least get some development back. And then it would be like I've traded my c pawn for white's e pawn, which definitely wouldn't be so bad if I can get my stuff out. So yeah, the issue with queen d6 though is that I'm running into knight f5 in every line. So like if bishop g8, for example, I think I'm okay if white takes the pawn, at least momentarily, but like knight f5 is just such a painful move, and now like all of white's stuff is coming in, and yeah, it's looking pretty brutal. There's also ideas of knight h5, where I can't move my knight on e6 because then there's going to be like knight f6 check, and yeah, this is quite brutal. So this is quite relevant if I play knight d8 here. I think the main move I was concerned about was knight h5. And white is threatening essentially to move this knight somewhere and have knight f6 check. Knight f6 right away I don't think is such a huge threat because I'll take, queen takes, pawn takes, and then I'm up a piece, and I think we're at least surviving that as black. I'm not sure. But white is also threatening to just like move this knight, and then knight f6 check is going to be a huge problem, something like knight g4. So yeah, this position I essentially wasn't seeing a good move for black, and I still don't see one. This position just like disgusted me. So I basically just, yeah, I thought I'm busted here because it looks pretty bad. Also, if I remember correctly, I really thought white had even more threats than this like knight f6 thing. But yeah, of course it's important to point out, like, black can't move. I can't castle queenside. I can't castle kingside because there's no bishop g7. So like, white doesn't even have to rush here to win the game. White can just like develop bishop d2, bishop c3, rook a d1, d4, and just it's going to be game over. So that position I definitely didn't want to see, and I end up going queen c7. And then on queen f3, I played bishop g8. So now knight f5 is not coming with tempo at least, and I am offering the c-pawn to my opponent, if he wants to get something back. But importantly, I'm keeping the knight on e6, so I'm not going knight d8 because I realize I just can't play this position with the knight on d8. I have to be able to at least threaten to castle. And I'm not even sure I'm threatening to castle here because white can take on f7 if I do castle and then just spoil my structure. So it really is quite a suspicious position, I think, for black. And in the game, my opponent ended up taking on c6 with the knight, which actually I was kind of relieved to see. I did not go queen takes c6. The move I was more worried about was definitely knight f5, where it's just like, yeah, my position, again, is very, very bad. And if I castle, for example, well, then knight takes c6 just looks really annoying, hitting the rook and threatening all kinds of tactics now with the queen coming in. So I just, yeah, didn't want to see that at all. So probably I was just going to play rook c8, like defending the pawn and looking for like knight g7 somewhere and trying to like just very, very slowly untangle. But yeah, I didn't like this situation. And then I checked this moment after the game with the engine, and yeah, I was just giving white like a huge advantage here. And it's not like so obvious for white to go into this because he has to just continue playing a pawn down. But yeah, it's really tough for black to kind of untangle here. And by the time I do untangle with some knight g7 or something, presumably white should be in time to, let's say, get the bishop to c3 or maybe crack with h4 or do something like. So yeah, it does feel pretty rough for black. So okay, knight c6 was played, but now I get rook c8, knight e5, and here I could go bishop g7. I decided to start with knight d4, and I'm hitting the queen and the c2 pawn. So now it feels like black is at least untangling a little bit. But of course, it's really not so easy because white can actually go like queen e4 or queen g4. I was more worried about with the idea knight takes c2, queen a4 check. So on queen g4, like really, yeah, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I was like thinking about like maybe b5 to reinstate the threat of knight takes c2. I was considering like h5 here, which I don't think this works, but the idea here would be like if queen takes g5, then I take on c2 and try to win some material and survive, which is probably foolish. But yeah, okay, I didn't think it was going to work. On h5, white can also go like knight takes here. And then the idea would be like f5, but then queen takes on g5. And yeah, I'm just giving up way too much material to just try to win the exchange. So there's no way this is ever working for black, I think. So yeah, on queen g4, I think b5 is going to be most likely what I play. I could also play bishop g7, I think, to start and attack the knight. But yeah, that was definitely a critical move. But my opponent played queen d1 actually rather quickly, and so my guess is he just didn't realize queen g4, queen e4 are options because of this queen a4 check thing. Because he just goes back, defends the pawn. But now I feel like, okay, well, queen is on d1, so bishop g7. Now at least I'm developing. And now I'm attacking the knight. So the knight doesn't really have any great squares. He decides to go back knight f3, which actually I was kind of expecting because it trades off the strong knight on d4. Bishop h7, I got to keep developing. Knight h5, castles. And okay, unfortunately, I had to give back the extra pawn. Now I have to give up the bishop pair, but I felt like it was worth it just to get the king safe. And at this point, I actually thought black is actually doing kind of okay because my king is a little bit weak, but I do have the bishop that can cover on the light squares. And I thought it's like not so easy for white to open things up for his dark square bishop. Now, maybe something like h4 was what I was considering during the game. This I did think is kind of, this I thought is dangerous because if g4, there's knight takes d4, and queen takes g4 comes with check, so that's no good, and then the d4 pawn will also hang. So on h4, I won't be able to push. I think I was thinking I would go f6, which, yeah, looks freaky, but I do want to go e5 to just completely like try to fight back on the dark squares. And maybe it's not so easy for white to break through. I mean, maybe he has to sacrifice something, but even if he does, my bishop is again kind of right there to defend. So instead came b3. And b3 I was happy to see because now I felt like, okay, this is not super aggressive. So I go rook fe8, bishop b2, e5. And this one I felt like, okay, maybe I'm actually like kind of equal, or at least like not worse. If white takes on d4 with something, I'll probably take with the c pawn and then go f6 just to secure the pawn chain, bishop g6, maybe start pushing h5, h4, push a little bit on the king side. Now I have more pawns in the center of the board, so I might even be able to build some kind of an initiative on the king side. But yeah, I mean, I wasn't feeling like super optimistic here, but at least not getting made it in the opening round one Grenke Open. So c3 was played, and c3 is an interesting move because it looks like he's weakening the d pawn, but the idea is like if knight takes f3, queen takes f3, and then white's just going to go d4 next move, open things up for the dark square bishop, and black's king starts to feel very uncomfortable. So on c3, of course, I drop back, knight c6. And here, actually, it did start to feel good about my position because now I felt like, well, now white's structure is pretty bad as well. So I can go rook c d8 next and put a lot of pressure. So here comes d4, probably the critical move. Rook d8. I don't want to take once at all and open up the bishop, so just keeping the tension, pinning the pawn. I felt like I don't need to rush with e4 either. d5. Okay, and now, yeah, like I definitely considered e4 here, but e4 kind of lets white open up the bishop with check, and so, yeah, this I don't think I wanted to allow, although I don't think this is like super dangerous. After f6, I'll put my knight on e5. In fact, I do think black is like totally okay here, but I kind of just liked what I did in the game more, which was not allow c4 by playing c4 myself. So this move I liked because this I feel like poses some nice problems to white. So if he takes the pawn, of course, I'm going knight a5, and then bringing the knight to c4. And now I feel like I'm actually getting like a middle game advantage with the opposite color bishops, where my pieces just feel a lot stronger, my structure feels better, and so on. I'll go f6, and my king actually might be perfectly safe because I do have an extra pawn on the king side. So this looked good. And yeah, I think I was mainly expecting queen e2, where I wasn't sure if I was going to play rook takes d5. Actually, no, I think I wanted bishop d3, queen e3. And this was a little bit tricky because white wants to maybe sacrifice on g5. So if rook takes d5, let's say bc, bishop takes c4, knight takes g5. I realized it was quite dangerous for black. Or at the very least, white can force a perpetual because if my king is going to f8, there's bishop a3 check. Like, I don't have a great answer to this check. Actually, maybe there's knight e7 check here, and if white gives another check, there's knight g6 blocking. Okay, so maybe actually the game continues, but I don't know. I mean, this still could be like super scary, and from afar, yeah, it'd be very hard to go for something like this. Maybe bishop takes e7 first, and then rook e3, and it's just like the attack could be really bad. So of course I didn't want to allow that, but I realized during the game on bc, I can just like bring my rook back somewhere, so that the bishop can come back to g6 because I don't need to take the c pawn. And so here we have equal material. We both took a pawn. White has these weak c pawns. Here I thought the sacrifice is not going through because I can just come back immediately, bishop g6, and yeah, white isn't nearly as active as in the other lines. So that was kind of my plan on queen e2. But instead white played bishop a3, which, okay, also makes sense, trying to force in d6, which I wasn't so afraid of because I felt like I had the pawn blockaded, but it is quite interesting. So f6, the pawn is still pinned, so I just strengthen e5, just good move for the structure. d6, queen f7, knight d2, and bishop d3. Now white took, which, yeah, I was kind of expecting, because now I'm slowly going to try to like round up the pawn, play around it, maybe b5 somewhere. So takes, I should say my opponent is definitely hitting time trouble around this point. I think already has maybe, and I had definitely more time around here. So he was really having to play quite quickly. So takes on c4, bishop takes c4. Now I definitely thought queen a4 would be the move, hitting both pieces. where I'm most likely going to play b5, queen a6. And yeah, I wasn't quite sure what move to play in this position because it's a little bit annoying. The knight is hanging and white has some pressure on c4 as well. I think minimum I have knight b8 if I absolutely don't want to give up any material, but yeah, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I was just going to have decided at this point, basically. Because on queen a4, yeah, I don't have to go b5. I also have knight a5. But then like maybe bishop b4. And then white just wants to take on a5. And so not so obvious for me how to handle this. But my opponent went knight takes c4. And when he did that, I definitely thought that was just kind of like a huge mistake. I don't know if it's an objective mistake, like according to the computer, but practically it felt like a really bad decision because now black just has like very good knight against white's bad bishop, and he can push d7, but the pawn is really not going to go anywhere because black's pieces are just kind of in control, and then like knight b8 is coming, and I can just quickly pick up the pawn. So I don't think white is going to be in time to support it. So queen c2, rook d7. Now I'm blockading the pawn. Rook d1, rook c8. And at this point, the position felt very easy to play because I just have all the light squares in the position. Just need to make sure not to allow any kind of tricks or counterplay. And yeah, I feel like eventually it's just very unpleasant for white to play this long term. So rook e3, queen e6, queen d2, knight a5. I'm just trying to bring the knight to c4. Rook d3, knight c4, queen c1. And now I thought it's like really tough for white because now the queen can't really move because the bishop is hit, and the bishop can't move either because if bishop b4, I'm just going a5 and sending the bishop back. So yeah, h4, white doesn't have a lot to do here. I advanced. King f1, I came here. At this point, I also don't have a lot of time, so I was just playing moves like pretty quickly. So I come here, induce g3, I come back. Now I have like the f3 square and some light squares to work with for the future. But here I actually found like the real plan that I needed to win this game would be to go queen c8, queen a6, and just go after this bishop and pawn on a2. So my opponent still is just kind of playing on the increment at this point. So just going very quickly, queen c8, rook d3, queen a6. And now it's a problem for white. In fact, on bishop b4, I'm not even going queen takes pawn, I'm going queen a4, followed by a5, and the bishop is lost. So white realized that, goes bishop b2, queen takes a2, bishop a1. And now it's like, okay. Now I'm like, all right, the game is over. I've won this pawn. My position is even more dominant than it was before because now white doesn't even have a bishop on a3. And yeah, I started thinking like, maybe I should just like run this pawn because white has no move. So I should just go like a5, a4, maybe a3, maybe queen b3 somewhere, a3, a2. It's like white literally just has no active moves. The queen cannot move because it'll get taken, and the bishop cannot move, and like the rooks can go back and forth between like d5 and d3, but like that's about it. The king doesn't even have that many squares either because the pawn on f2 is hit. So yeah, I think that's actually the best thing for black to do. It's just like run the pawn to a3, go queen b3. Somewhere you can even play knight b2, or you can just go like a2, like bring the knight. Like it's or at some point you just take the pawn. Like the pawn is just hanging, and black can just take this pawn and then promote on the queen side. And then something came over me, and I decided to just like take the pawn right away. Because I thought like, well, it's I'm winning 2 pawns now. Now it's 2 pawns, good knight, bad bishop. So should be good. Takes, knight takes. And then I made sure to calculate queen d1. I have queen e6. I thought, okay, everything is defended. I have 2 pawns up. I can just like slowly advance. But like this position, honestly, not as easy as the one before where white couldn't move. Like I really should have just had the same position, but with the pawn on a2. like I can just get this exact same thing, but with my pawn on a2, and that would be a lot easier to convert than this one. Because bishop b2, white starts to come back. I go a5. I don't know why I didn't start with b5. Like, yeah, my technique was really starting to suffer here because b5 doesn't allow any activity with queen a4. But a5 allows queen a4. And now I went knight c4, bishop c1, king g6, he gives check, I go f5, and he comes back. And this is actually kind of like hard or a little bit annoying to make progress here because my pawns aren't moving, and if my queen goes too far, there's going to be checks. And it's like my knight is also dominated. So like all of a sudden, it's like kind of hard to move around. If knight d6, queen c6, he pins me, and I'm losing the b pawn. So like I don't think this knight c4 was good. I actually think like queen c4 would have been better. With the idea to me, queen f7 check with knight f7, keeping the knight close to the king, covering all the checks, and trying to activate the queen. And now I don't think it's like that easy for white to pose problems, because I want to play like queen b3, harass the bishop, start pushing the a pawn. So for example, I don't know, h5 I was thinking here and here, try to get some checks. I'm going queen b3, bishop c1, queen b1. And, well actually wait, queen b3, white is taking this one with check. So this is not good. So maybe I need to go this way, like queen e2, I think is better. Hitting the bishop, now I've got like queen e1 check as well. Okay, white will go bishop a3 most likely. And you know, it's like still, yeah, it's still like not that easy to convert. I understand I have like queen check here. Let's say here, and takes, white takes this one. And I guess I go back, king h8 maybe. But you know, it's like game continued. Okay, hold on. Like bishop f8, like black can still lose this. I think black is still okay here. Queen c6 check, like knight g5. But I don't know. Like actually, I got no idea. So it's like clearly this is still tricky. Queen e4 check, probably better. And no, actually, yeah, I think this is like, maybe this is even worse than what I did in the game, because there's a queen e7, queen f8 coming. So for me, the biggest mistake was just like taking this pawn on d6. It's like, why allow all this, right? I mean, absolutely like horrible decision, I think. Even if there is some kind of like very clean way to dominate white's pieces and not let white have any activity, it's just, yeah, super rough that I got into this mess. So knight c4. And the whole thing kind of just like unravels here. f5, he goes back. I go h5, which I think is also bad because it gives the g5 square. So king f7, queen a6. Now there's checks this way. I come back. Now he comes in, queen a8, king g7. He gives check. I come here. So now I'm getting even more passive because I have to like, cover everything. And at this point, yeah, I just lose it. I'm just like, okay, I'm going f4. I just can't take it anymore because now, okay, he's threatening some checks on h6, which is not fun at all. And then even like perpetuals on the dark square. So I got to go f4. He takes. I take. Queen e4, of course, going after the pawn. And f3 maybe was possible. I didn't consider because I just thought f3 doesn't come with any threats. So white can just continue, and my king is now exposed, so like white can just start giving checks, and that looks super annoying. My knight is hanging, b6 is possibly hanging as well, right? So it's not good. So I go g3 because like I need to open up more lines, because if I open lines, maybe somewhere I get queen g6 check. If I can trade queens, I win this endgame with my knight on c4, pawn on a5. This one just runs through. So white goes f3, doesn't allow me to open any lines. f4 is hanging, and finally I just go back, knight d6, check, queen f6, bishop takes f4. And this one hurt when white took this one. I was like, oh man, how did we get here? Knight f5. So okay, I couldn't trade queens because I would lose my knight, but now I definitely do want to trade queens. So white gives check, come up, bishop takes g3. Now I'm no pawns up. Queen e6. And yeah, at this point, I'm just like furious with myself because like, how could I have let this happen? We're both in like playing on the increment now. So yeah, we've both run out of time. And okay, queen e6, it poses some questions for white. I have some checks. And this one's not super easy now because like if white goes bishop e5, I'll take on h4. Queen g7 check, I would go king f5. And I don't think white actually has good checks here. And now I'm threatening f3 and I'm threatening the bishop as well. So this one looked like probably is going to be working out for black, though who knows. But instead came queen f4, threatening queen g5. But of course I have queen e3 check. which is a big problem for white, as this just forces the queen trade. And all of a sudden, even though I'm no pawns up, everything works out. Takes, takes. Bishop c7 can be met with knight d5. And then the a-pawn is just running. So just like that, queen e3 forces the queens off, and it's game over. White can move the king. I'll just take. Maybe this was a better try because my knight doesn't get to c4 so quickly. But I think it's probably pretty good for black. If takes on h4, there's bishop c7. So I think I would probably start with b5 here, followed by a4. And actually, this would be harder to convert than the game, but I think it is good for black because like this pawn is a huge weakness, and of course the queen side is running as well. And yeah, white can't defend this one because I'm just going a4, and the bishop needs to come back to stop the pawns. And then I'm taking this, and now I have a second outside pass pawn. So yeah, most likely winning endgame for black. But that probably would have made things harder. Instead, we traded bishop f4, knight c4, and now the a pawn is just running. So bishop c1, a3. White had to take. But black has 2 pawns left, so there's really not enough for white here for the piece. So f4, I went b5, and yeah, white resigned in this position. Because now if he, let's say, stays here, I'm just going knight b1, knight takes c3, picking up this pawn. If he goes for the b pawn, it takes time, and then after king c5, I can just go knight b1 here. And he can't take the pawn without losing the c pawn. If he goes king b4, okay, whatever, I go king g4. And once white takes the pawn, I'll take this one, and then of course it's winning endgame. So yeah, I ended up winning this game, and of course it didn't feel great. It just felt like I got a little caught in the opening with this nice sacrifice. I managed to untangle, got a winning position, like 2 pawns up, perfect, beautiful, and then just like let it completely unravel all over the place. So that definitely wasn't good, and it kind of set a sour tone for the tournament because I just feel like, oof, this first game was like so messy. It really could have been a lot smoother, especially if I had just not taken that second pawn on move 45 here and extended the game another 30 moves. Just running the a pawn, I think, would have allowed me to finish the game a lot quicker. Especially because I still had time here. Like I would have had time to just kind of keep thinking in case anything were to happen. But anyways, that was round 1. So I'll be back in the next video with the future rounds. Thanks for watching.